Okay, well, another busy day. I got a lot of stuff sorted out today. A lot of stuff made into little piles waiting for boxes that I am assured will be along sometime soon, I hope. Got a whole bunch of garbage bags filled up, and some of them are taken out to the bin. And so anyway, I was sorting a bunch of stuff out and found a pile of papers I was going through. And I'm guessing that something fell out of like a folder or something, because there were some fairly important documents in this pile of paper. But then under that there was a letter, and it's quite romantic. So the reason the reason she doesn't appear to have left is that her sister's was not ever her destination. Apparently, she has hooked up with a guy that she knew in high school, who apparently he was married at an inconvenient period of time, and then she had her stroke, and then she recovered from that while he was married, and then an inconvenient obstacle in between them hooking up again. And apparently I'm not an inconvenient obstacle anymore, because this letter was an invitation, and so I've been upgraded. And see, now I understand why she couldn't tell me what I had done, because maybe I didn't actually do anything to warrant this. And maybe it isn't so much a matter of her engineering the most hurtful and damaging, and it's entirely possible that what she did was in haste, that she just couldn't get to him without getting to him quickly, because she had to arrange like a contingent of her friends, and it had to be all kind of tightly choreographed and everything. But I do know that she's been planning this since at least last October. So that's when the letter is dated. Anyway, a couple of months ago, I would have been enraged by this letter if I had known that it had existed, because I was still playing by the old rules. Gradually, a new rule set began to replace that as my understanding of MGTOW grew, and I did more reading on it. And now I can't even be upset by it. It's a very romantic letter. Kudos to you, buddy. Look, I hope it's what you really want, because if it turns out to not be, it's going to really suck. Yeah, my little Nawal disposed of me and upgraded me like she was getting a new fucking phone, because I'm broken now. Physically broken. I've done as much physical work as I'm going to get out of this body. It's now just, either time to figure out something else to do, some other way of getting by, or, probably just, I don't know, starve to death, go live under a cardboard box or whatever. I think that I have a plan worked out for the better alternative, and I'm liking that. But here's what I've been thinking about, and I think that this is really an important thought, because 2 months ago I would have been furious about this, and now I look at this and I'm going, oh my God, society is so broken that they can look at this and not fucking blink. See, she had to get all of her friends over here to pick her shit up from here and take it to his place. That means all of her friends were complicit in this. And we're talking about like 20 people. They never batted an eye. They're looking at this as, okay, he's a bum. He's used up or useless, or he's just fucking lazy, and he doesn't want to do nothing, so just fucking leave him. And we'll help. We'll pack your shit up and we'll move you to this other guy that you can sponge off of until you use him up, because that seems perfectly reasonable to us. Wow. None of them individually can be held accountable for that, because they were all raised. This is pernicious. It is everywhere, and nobody sees it, because, what was it that Morpheus said? This is the world that has been pulled over your eyes. They can't see it. This is invisible. This is the way things are supposed to be. From their perspective, and this seems perfectly fair to them. It's a perfectly rational situation, because of stuff like this, where men are being discarded and where men are being worked into the ground, and in some cases even worked to death. Men in Japan are way ahead of us over here. I mean, the population density is incredibly high over there. They have the same approximate population as the US, and they're all stuck on this one little chain of islands. So it's a huge difference in the amount of pressure. Their version of this has evolved much more quickly because they're much more tightly packed. There's much more exposure. There's much more social influence in a tightly crowded environment. But I've been thinking about this today. Now, the statistic that I heard may be conflated a little bit. I'm not positive if it's actually a valid statistic or not, but if it's anything close to this, this is alarming. What I have read is that 70% of men in Japan are refusing to have anything to do with women. 70%! Holy shit! And then I realized why this pisses feminists off, why women in general feel threatened by this. Those 70% represent an economically infeasible model. The women over there are not going to have their selection of who to support them. That means the vast majority of the women over there are going to have to compete on a more or less equal footing. And if that happens over here, then the women over here are going to rapidly discover that they have dug a pit for themselves that they are not going to be that pleased with. I imagine that the women in Japan are beginning to come to this realization as well. See, it's one thing to drive men away and make them want to not have anything to do with women because they feel like they're being taken advantage of and that the risk is too high. The financial risk to them individually is way too damn high for them to be doing this shit. So it's just a question of if they're not going to be supporting them, who's going to support them? They're going to have to go out and get jobs. And if they had been going out and getting jobs in the 50s and 60s, and it was really strong, vibrant manufacturing country, and we were figuring out how to do things before everybody else. We had it good. And if you were halfway good at your job, you had a job. You didn't have to be efficient at it. You didn't have to be terribly skilled at it. Manufacturing industry was growing so fast that there was a glut of opportunity, and there weren't enough asses to fill the positions. So you could be, a little stupid. You could be klutzy and inept, and you could be fucking mentally retarded, and you could get a job. Because it didn't need for you to be perfect. They just needed for you to be, well, sort of productive. And they could still justify having you. And now, because of the influence that feminism has imposed on traditionalism, guys are having to work themselves to death for women. And it's not an equitable relationship, and guys are starting to walk away. So the women have set the performance bar up so high now where men are expected to compete with each other and not think a thing of it. See, I can go have a beer with Fred after work, and then during work hours, there's no quarter asked and none taken. And we don't even have hard feelings about it at the end of the day. And we'll go have a beer. We compete, and we compete as gentlemen, and then we can have a beer. And if somebody winds up getting that promotion, or if somebody winds up getting sacked the next day, it doesn't have a real effect on us, because that's the way that we've been raised, that we compete, and we compete each other out of existence, but that's okay because we're guys. It would be inappropriate for us to feel entirely too much about that. So we don't. The line goes around the factory waiting for job opportunities, and if somebody dies in the factory doing their job, that basically means that there's an opening. And the guys, it doesn't faze them. They will find they will find that the opening is entirely okay with them. I actually got a job when I was in high school, wiring new construction. I got my job pulling cable because an opening had come open. Now, it wasn't the guy that I replaced. The guy that I replaced was more skilled than I, and he moved up into a journeyman position, and basically I was just a helper. But what led to that was one of the journeymen had been really fucking stressed. He was constantly afraid of some of the conditions that he was having to work in, and it started to affect him to the point where he was afraid that he was going to touch the wrong thing or make some other mistake and wind up getting fried. And guess what? He was climbing this damn little utility pole, couldn't have been more than maybe 12 feet high. And because it wasn't real high, he didn't put his cleats on properly. While he was up there, his belt slipped, and one of his cleats became unstuck in the pole. And so he was kind of precarious, and he only had one cleat in the wood, so he panicked, trying to keep himself from falling, well, probably about 8 feet, which wouldn't have killed him. So he grabbed the first thing that he saw, and it was a 443 phase cable. And yeah, he was pretty thoroughly cooked. So I got my job and never gave it a thought that somebody died to make that opening. Women don't get that. Women worry right now about whether or not they're going to break a fucking nail. I have done jobs like operate a punch press where you don't worry about whether or not you're going to break a nail, because if you don't pay attention to what you're doing, the machine will take your fucking hand. So women don't take jobs like that, but they're going to have to. They're going to have to start. And the reason is they've set the bar so high that if men walk away from them, they're not faced with taking a job in an easy market. They're faced with taking a job in job hell, where you have to take a job that pays shit and has little or no benefits, and it may not even be a safe job. And yeah, they're going to find out what it's like to work in unsafe jobs, high risk jobs. They're going to have to, because they don't spend a hell of a lot of money on themselves in educating themselves to get them better, job skills. I was thinking about it and thinking about a whole bunch of things, and this letter that I found just kind of made me think about, well, just shitloads of things. And that's kind of what this entire channel is about, is what I'm thinking about and why, and where my mind takes me as I am trying to work things out and get back on my feet. I don't see this ending well for women. Men are going to find it inconvenient. But this is the life that we've been living now for at least centuries without so much as a complaint. A lot of deaths. Well, actually, yeah, there have been complaints about deaths when deaths become too common. If you have a mine and 30 guys are disappearing in that mine every couple of 6 months, you're going to have a problem with that mine keeping it open, because guys will go down there and risk their lives for coal, but not if the odds are too thin. So yeah, guys live with this, and the bar has gone up just incredibly high, and women are going to be faced with doing like a 0 to 500 miles an hour, where back in the 50s and 60s, they would be expected to, do a nice 0 to 50 or 0 to 100 in the worst case. Now, you basically have to catch up with fucking light speed in the snap of fingers. And if you're not already equipped to do that, I can't imagine how hard that would be. I can't imagine being stuck in a situation where all the rules of the game just seem to imply that you're totally not good enough, because you, for the most part, are totally not good enough. Women have generated a situation for themselves now where they're going to have to go compete in a market of their design that is as predatory and inequitable as anything they have ever faced. And it's basically by their own hand. Just my thoughts for the day.